Welcome to For the Long Run, the podcast exploring the why behind what keeps runners running long, strong, and motivated. I'm your host, Jonathan Levitt. I've been running for a few years now and have the privilege of meeting many incredible runners on my travels all across the country. This podcast is intended to share those amazing conversations. This week's podcast is sponsored by Synchronet, powered by Wigwam. Synchronet uses breakthrough technology, creating a truly fitted sock that doesn't slip and it enhances the performance of a running shoe. They're tight on the arch and heel, which makes it feel snug. Go to synchronet.com, synchroknit.com, and enter in the code LONGRUN25 to receive 25% off. I'll be wearing them this spring, and you should too. Enjoy. And welcome back. I am here with Shalane Flanagan, who is tuning in from Portland, Oregon. Shalane, thanks for joining today.
Yeah, thank you. It's nice to chat with people at this point in time.
Totally. So, as has been common with my first question on this podcast, we'll start from there. Who is Shalane Flanagan?
I don't know. That's a deep question. I guess it's as deep as you want to make it. Right now I'm a caring, concerned person. That's what I would say.
Awesome. Well, let's go from there. So, right now we're in a bit of a limbo, to say the least, with uncertainty and races being canceled left and right. So, I wanted to chat with you on this podcast for a while now, based on the story that you have and what you've done in the past, but more importantly, what's ahead. And so, as you posted on Instagram the other day, you're back running. You're enjoying it, and what I love about that is you're running for the purity of running, which I think a lot of people find themselves in right now. And the goal of this podcast is exploring the why. So I sort of want to dive into that with you. So I guess the first question is, what's it like being back running and doing shorter distance and focusing on, rebuilding as a runner?
Yeah, I think, so it's been a year basically of not much running. I had surgery last April for my first knee, and then got to run a little bit, but realized my left knee was also in dire straits and needed help and surgery as well. So I have not done much running in the last year. And honestly, over the last year, I had moments of doubt as to whether I'd ever run again. The surgeries were really extensive. Basically knee reconstruction. And so I didn't know what level of running or any type of running would be in my future. So that's really scary, considering it's like my drug of choice. It's certainly like, it makes me 100% a better person if I can run. And I think a lot of people can relate to that. I just feel like it sets the tone for your day. You're just a better parent, a better teacher, a better friend, wife, husband. Like, we're just better people if we can move and get outside and be in nature. And running is just so natural. And so the thought of, I had moments of thought like, oh, like I may never had that. Like I may just be a walker and a hiker for the rest of my life. And that may be my mode of transportation outside. And so it really made me think about like what ifs, if that wasn't a reality, to be able to kick open the door and go for a run, and how would I deal with that?
Did you come to peace with that?
A little bit. But because I'm in the industry of running, I've had to watch, all of our amazing athletes run every day, and which is super fun because I vicariously get to live through their achievements and be a part of that process. But to watch them be able to go for runs, I think also was kind of salt in the wound to just not be able to go run myself. Like they make it look so effortless and natural. And to think like, oh my gosh, like with each step they were taking, it was like, I could just feel like my knees hurting. And I was like, am I ever not going to be in pain running and walking? And I'm so grateful. My second knee surgery went really well, actually much better than the first. So I'm back to running much sooner than I thought. Like I thought I'd wait till maybe sometime in April. I just give myself a lot of wiggle room based on how I'm feeling. But I've had the same physical therapist, Colleen Little, who's here in Portland, she has been helping me through this process the entire time. And she's an all-star soccer player, now a marathoner, and like so grateful to have her perspective and someone to just kind of keep me on track. But I basically just relied on her and my massage therapist that I had through my pro career, and was able to just implement all the exercises, get back. And really, honestly, the first day of kind of test running was the Olympic trials marathon, ironically, in Atlanta, because in order to get to see the athletes, I had to run from place to place. And so I was like, I'm a dedicated coach. I'm going to do whatever it takes. And
Yeah.
if it makes my knees hurt, it makes my knees hurt. So, screw it. I'm going to be running around on the course. And as I was running around, I felt very awkward the first few steps because it was kind of unplanned. But I realized I'm like, I need to run. I need to see where the athletes are. And so I was like, oh, I don't feel so bad. And the next day, and even that night, I didn't feel sore walking around. And I was like, oh, I think I can start running. So ironically, my first steps back running after the second knee surgery was at the Olympic trials in Atlanta. So
that's amazing.
But yeah, I'm very grateful. Running to me looks very different. Running looks really different for me right now. I literally stop to smell the roses and the flowers. I just run and walk whenever I feel like it, for however distance, or don't run that day if I'm too busy. But I know that in the end, for my mental health and just physical well-being, obviously running is a great medicine. And now more than ever, like I was thinking, like, I'm so appreciative that I can run right now. I think there's just a lot of stress building up in people's bodies, and whether we realize it or not, and being able to get out in nature, thankfully, is just such great medicine. And running is so simple. And I was joking around with the team that maybe we'd see an uptick in health and like another running boom, because right now this is like the one thing people do have control over and can do right now is get out and run. And I was thinking, like, people are cooking at home more. I was trying to think of the positives of all of this. And yeah, who knows? Maybe we'll have this running boom because of it.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, and I think that the ability to just run for running's sake at a time like this is helpful. And there are a lot of athletes that never get like a base period, and I think this is a really interesting time for that.
Yeah, I was running with a friend, and she's runs for BTC Elite, and I think she was realizing that there wasn't going to be much of a track season for her, and maybe some races that she was hoping to run, and she's like, it's going to be all for nothing. And I turned it to her as we were running. I'm like, it's never all for nothing. It's like, we're going to stuff the silo full of good miles right now.
Yeah.
You're going to get so fit that you're going to reap some major rewards this fall. You can really put your head down. And our team is known for stuffing the silo. We take training pretty seriously and have a huge base. Like, we are like, we take our base period very seriously. And so, a lot of people that maybe don't get this time to just run a lot of miles and not have anything specific could be a big blessing for a lot of people.
Totally. So prior to last spring, my most recent marathon was Boston 2017. And between Boston 2017 and the Providence Marathon last spring, I didn't race and I just trained. And I think that's when breakthroughs can happen, when you don't have that big recovery block, and you're just able to push and push and push and then rest and push and push and push. I think magic can happen, after that, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. You could never, and to a degree, all those miles make you just a stronger athlete, especially when you don't have interruptions of races to kind of, like you said, have this big recovery period. So yeah, if there's a silver lining, I think we're going to see a lot of fit people coming out of the woodwork this fall and into next year.
And hopefully a lot of new marathoners and a lot of new runners. And it's really cool to see people that aren't into fitness or they're not into running get into it, because it's almost like you can't go to the gym, you can't go to spin classes, you can't go to all these things, but you can run.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So is gratitude something you practice intentionally?
I I guess I do. I don't know that I like have set aside a time to be like, okay, let's practice gratitude. I just think in moments, in just random moments throughout the day, I'll like hear of a sad situation, and it makes me realize how like grateful I am for something, based on the fact that I'm seeing someone else struggle, and thinking like, wow, that's a great perspective, because perspective is everything. And so just, I was talking to my dad the other day and just saying, yeah, like, the perspective of the fact that we do have our health. Everyone in my family right now is in good health. And like, that is just something to be so grateful for right in this moment. And grateful that we all still have our jobs. Grateful that I have a home. Grateful that, I have plenty of food in my refrigerator. I mean, just the basics of life, I think is, it's amazing like how we take normalcy for granted too. And I was saying to Jerry yesterday after practice, I'm like, man, what we would give just to be normal right now. And we take normalcy for granted a lot. Like we're always looking for the big highs and thrills of life and big achievements and big moments. And we're always seeking those. And that's great. But sometimes we undervalue and underappreciate normalcy. And I think our nation and the world is going to really, really savor and appreciate normalcy, when we do eventually get back to it.
Totally. Yeah, it's wild to think about what the complaints were even a month ago. And
Yeah.
we would crave that right now, where we do crave that right now.
Yeah.
So one thing that I find really interesting with this podcast, and so I've done about 70 interviews so far with mostly professional or elite athletes or high performing individuals in their career in some capacity. And the consistency across the board is a focus on the long-term journey versus one tangible outcome, or winning a race, or hitting a time goal, or getting a contract or something like that. And so that's a thing I find fascinating, that there seems to be a disconnect between amateurs and professionals, where intuitively you would think it would be flip-flopped, right? A professional should be striving to win, whereas an amateur should be striving to enjoy the process. And so I love asking professionals, like, why do you think that's the case? You've won some of the biggest races, yet it seems like your focus is, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like your focus is just loving the journey and bringing others with you.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think if you can, and not all pros, I guess, have that same mentality that you just described, but to some degree, yeah, we are really extremely lucky to do, like, we are living out our passion, and
Right.
and not everyone gets to do that. So I think we realize that. I think most people do realize like what a privilege it is to be an athlete and to genuinely wake up and be really excited about your day. And just knowing that, I think too, to a degree, professional athletics does definitely have a window, in which you can be a professional athlete. And so to just really genuinely appreciate when you are a professional athlete, because at some point it will end. And so I think just savoring in that, in the moment of every day that of your health and your ability to do what you love. I mean, it seriously is just an incredible gift to be a professional athlete. And I remember getting my first paycheck from Nike and being like, I can't believe they're going to pay me to run. They're paying me to do this. They didn't know that I would do this for nothing. Joke's on them. Like,
don't tell them
so,
now.
I know. So no, and I like remember like purchasing my first home and thinking that running afforded me a home. It blew my mind, like completely blew my mind. And it's never lost on me the fact that I got to do what I love for that long, and I continue to get to do what I love. So it's never lost on me. I think about it every single day.
That's awesome. I had a question that a friend wanted to ask, and she's a teacher, and she wanted to know, what do you find most rewarding about working with young female athletes? So now you're paying it forward and working with the next generation. What's that like?
Yeah, I feel like I've been through almost everything there is to go through. So anytime um, they're experiencing a struggle or a hardship or something that they're having to overcome, whether it's personal or professional, um, what I love is I feel like I just go into my encyclopedia of experiences and pull out like, oh, well, in 2006, I went through this. So I can apply this knowledge to your situation. And yes, it's maybe not the same, but we can work through this together and I can guide you based on how the results of what I did or didn't do and what I learned. And, so to have attained all this knowledge in this sport and been through a lot, to not use that knowledge just would seem like such a waste. So I love that I created that portfolio and encyclopedia of all that knowledge. And now I literally get to serve it up to these other athletes. And what's fun is they're going to be so much better than I ever was. And that's my goal as a coach, is like make them better than I ever was. And, they are at such an advantage, in a lot of aspects of training. And primarily, I think the biggest thing is having a team and a support group. I didn't have that coming out of college and my early professional years, and I still did well. But now I look at it, I'm like, man, I could have been a lot better had I had this type of situation and environment and culture that we've created at Bowerman. But yeah, just to be able to serve others with knowledge that I've attained, and it's not like it's not going to good use. And so that makes me excited that everything is now, literally being paid forward, and watching them advance and maybe skip over a few potholes that they would have potentially had to go through, or and help them avoid kind of certain, maybe mistakes that I made. Just that's a really great feeling, to just feel like I'm making their lives better in some capacity.
Definitely. So you have that in the small group setting with the crew in Portland, and then you've also put out a few cookbooks. And what I love about the cookbooks is it's a focus on nourishment and fueling versus what we often see on maybe Instagram or these top 10 food lists and things like that. So where did the inspiration for the cookbook come from?
Well, it was the collaboration between my best friend and I, Elise Kopecki. We met as freshmen at the University of North Carolina, and we had a variety of experiences. She went through a lot of struggles with injuries, and I seemed to thrive. But basically, 20 years later, 15 years later, we reunited. We were friends all those years, but we reunited over a home cooked meal, basically, that she had cooked for us at my house. And she just come back from culinary school, and she was describing how she was feeling stronger and healthier through applying the knowledge that she learned in culinary school and all the misinformation. And at the time, I was trying to, looking ahead to qualifying for my fourth Olympics. And I just told her that I was feeling run down, and I feel like I didn't even know how to fuel properly. And I was hungry all the time. And I knew that maybe I wasn't eating the best foods, but I just didn't know any better. And so she and I were like, well, let's do an experiment. Let's apply the knowledge that she had attained, and let's start getting me in the kitchen and cooking, because I wasn't really a cook, to be honest. And which is wild, because now it's genuinely one of my top passions in life, is cooking, and especially for other people and the athletes and teaching them. And so from there, I applied the knowledge that she gave me and avoided all the diet trends. And I literally just could feel myself full of more energy. I felt like I was recovering better. I started to run actual PRs and events. And as I was the aging athlete, and I said to Elise, after, a few months of eating differently, I said, we have to share this. This is just too good. We need to share this information. And I don't know if someone will publish us. We didn't think, we didn't know that if anyone would ever bite on our idea of, this cookbook. But we're like, well, we'll self-publish. We'll figure a way out. We need to get this information out regardless. We were just too passionate about it. But thankfully, we were picked up and published, and it was wildly successful and received really well in the endurance community. And we received so much great positive feedback that now I feel like we are on a mission to keep creating content because the demand is high. And I think the biggest thing for me, my motivation and goal was to help young athletes in high school and in college, because there's just a lot of eating disorders, men and women, primarily women, but I witnessed eating disorders in college, and I just was like, we've got to help those people as well, specifically. So yeah, it was born out of somewhat, a selfish endeavor to help me, but then realizing how much it could help other people if it was helping me.
That's awesome. So we've seen a lot of changes in the running industry and in college athletics and professional athletics in the last few months and maybe years as well. What do we do as what do we do to keep moving forward, and how do we continue to facilitate progress with the next generation?
You mean just in terms of just getting better, stronger, faster, that kind of
Yeah, staying healthier,
yeah.
Reducing the injury cycle, things like that.
Yeah, well, I always there's a variety of things you can do to be a better athlete. And I think runners love to nerd out and get geeked out with technology and gadgets and stuff, but to be honest, I'm pretty old school. I just emphasize a few things with athletes to just stay healthy and be the best athlete you can be. And one of the greatest things is first one is sleep. Like, it's free. And if you can emphasize a good sleep schedule, it's so undervalued, but by some people, and especially younger kids, they may not have the best sleep schedules, but when I was a professional athlete, and I still kind of abide by this today. I'm kind of a geek. I don't really like staying out late, and I like being up early. So I fit well, obviously, as a athlete. But yeah, people undervalue sleep. It's the greatest time to recover, and through good sleep. So my schedule is pretty much climbing into bed at 9 and waking up about 5 every day, and when I do that, my body and my mental state is so much better than, let's say if I'm traveling and I'm not able to keep a really good schedule and I'm missing a few hours of sleep. It's amazing how much it affects my mood. Like, I'm just a lot patient and a little more irritable and just lack of focus and lack of energy. And so the biggest thing I think is like sleep. And the greatest part about that is, like I said, it's free. So it's just being disciplined enough to kind of instill those good habits, I guess, and create those habits and environment. And then I really do believe nutrition is a huge component. And that's why, we created our cookbooks. And I feel like if you're fueling well, you're going to have more energy. And who doesn't want more energy? And the recovery process is upped. I think, getting in the kitchen and learning how to cook for yourself is kind of a lost art form, or at least it was for a while. We had home economics and we started to kind of learn how to cook, but I think that's, not really part of the curriculum anymore. And so I love seeing younger kids getting in the kitchen and cooking with their parents. I think it's a great time to spend together with your family, and sharing a meal and slowing down and appreciating the food that you're eating. I think are great assets. And then, I try to emphasize with our athletes, and I try to apply with myself as well, is just becoming a well-rounded athlete, and running in a variety of different distances and races, I think makes you a better athlete in totality. And I think you're going to see improvement if you do a variety of things and not always doing what you're good at. If you're really good at those long runs, but you're really terrible at the speed, like, put a little more emphasis on the things you're not good at, and, getting in the gym and doing other activities to make you versatile. And, through my injury, I've been doing a lot of spin classes with my dad. Every Wednesday we usually go spinning, not right now, but, just becoming a good total athlete, I think just helps keep you a little more mentally and physically fresh, and developing muscles that maybe sometimes get underused when you're running. So I think, those 3 things: sleep, nutrition, and then just becoming a good, versatile athlete makes you just stronger, and you'll have, I think, just more fun in general.
I love it. One of the
Yeah.
things you mentioned earlier was that making sure you get your run in or making sure you get your sleep in, or specifically you said, you do it for yourself, but you do it so that you can show up for others. And I think that it's so important to highlight that helping yourself so that you can help others and be better. I travel a lot, and I get the reminder of, from the flight attendants, please put your own mask on before helping those around you. And
Yeah.
I never take that literally. I always get that as a metaphorical reminder that, like, you need to do things for yourself so that you can do things for others. And personally, I make the 8 hours of sleep mandatory. Like, that's the basis for everything else, and everything else builds on that. And I think when you have those fundamental blocks that are critical and essential, it allows you to sort of do everything else in a higher quality way.
100%. Amen. I love that. Yes.
Awesome. Um, so one of the things that I like to ask on this podcast, um, I love to hear about balance, or juggling, as some people like to call it. As someone that has been a professional athlete for a number of years, the pendulum maybe swings far in one direction sometimes, and maybe in another direction other times. How do you balance or juggle what's important to you?
Um, yeah, as an athlete, like you said, the pendulum can swing to extremes, and that's what makes you really exceptional and great at times at what you do. Is you're going to have to live unbalanced life and go all in on something that's really important to you, and do the things that you don't necessarily want to do to reap the rewards that are really big. And I truly believe that those decisions need to be made to get really big things out of yourself. But that being said, the pendulum must at some point swing the other direction of recovery and mental break, athletically, or whatever your profession is. So I totally believe in the extremes, but if you were to step back and take a look at like the whole year, it probably does come out to look a little more balanced than not. It's just that you have to kind of set aside time to go all in on certain projects and certain aspects of life that are really important to you, because the rewards can be really big. And I love that saying, like, it took me like 15 years to become an overnight success. It's like, it's so true. You really do have to just put in a ton of time to be really great at something. It's not an overnight thing. So yeah, I fully believe in it. Sometimes it's hard to do. It's hard to embrace, especially, if you don't have the support system to let that pendulum swing to extremes. But yeah, creating a culture and an environment that's conducive really helps. But yeah, throughout my career, towards the end, for sure, I could see that I was starting to maybe not let the pendulum swing as extreme. And that's when I knew I probably needed to transition out of being a full-time athlete, because I just had so many other interests that were starting to seep into my life. And I wasn't as excited about the extreme pendulum swings of discipline. I was still disciplined, but I was like, I still wanted to contribute to running and in different ways. And so, like, with the cookbook and going on like a cookbook tour, those are tiring moments, but very worthwhile, because the connection that you create with people and the impact you feel like you have is fueled me to put in the hard training. But more and more, I could feel over the last couple of years that I wanted to do other things. I wanted to make my day more about the other athletes I was training with. I was more into their running than I was my own, and that was kind of a sign. And yeah, I think everyone has to figure out what works for them, but I'm all about going all in on certain things at certain times, to make sure that you're doing with no regrets. You would just don't want to have regrets about something that's important to you.
For sure. I love the focus on community and connection, and and doing things to support others. One of the things that you've done that has been meaningful for me and the Boston running community here was the Back the Track 5K that you were a part of up in Marblehead, which is still my 5K PR from 2014. I need to
Awesome.
I need to break that.
I
And
remember that day. I remember you told me that. You're like, I ran a PB. I'm like, awesome. Yeah.
and I haven't run
That's
that
great. Yeah. Have you picked out another 5K since?
I have tried. I've done a handful of 5Ks since then, and I haven't gotten close. Which is frustrating. But I ran that time in a 20-minute workout, and then had like 2 more minutes that needed to run. So hopefully it happens soon. But yeah, I just love the community focus in that. So hopefully we see you back. Hopefully you have that race in the fall. But yeah, that was a fun one.
Yeah, that was great. Yeah, it all started with needing to resurface my hometown track, and so my dad or my parents still lived there at the time, and obviously I didn't. But we were trying to get creative with ways to, give back to the community and help rebuild the track. And so, yeah, having that 5K was a great idea. And it was insane because I think the first year that we held it, which is I think the year that you set your PB, I had like Joan Benoit show up. I had Tom Grilk of the BAA. I had Mary Wittenberg of New York Roadrunners. I had like this all-star cast and crew come to support my small little like sea fishing village community. It kind of blew my mind. So just goes to show just how supportive the running community is. It really, it's how show up for each other. It really is special.
Definitely. And do you remember the hill workout that you did that week?
Oh yeah, right before that race, I joined you. What was that? Not Bunker Hill. What hill was that? That was insane.
Summit Ave in Brookline with November Project.
Yes. Yeah. Wow. And it was really cold, and I think like snowing. It was really impressive. So much fun. It's a great reason to get up early in the morning for that.
Definitely. What big scary goals do you still have going forward?
Be one of the best coaches in the world. That's a pretty good one.
Yeah.
There are not many, if any, female coaches coaching at this level. And yeah, I want to be one of the best, not just a female, not one of the best female coaches, just one of the best coaches. So, I feel like I've got a great mentor with Jerry and Pascal, and I want to just take it to another level. I'm thinking just beyond coaching, thinking about just as like a team, like taking us to the next level professionally, like as an entity. I'm always brainstorming about how we could do things better for our community, how we can do things better for the athletes, working with sponsors and hosting races, and just trying to operate like a business, try to bring some business savvy to the team and how we operate, and just make sure we're well run. And so, yeah, just taking it beyond just coaching, thinking about like the next level, like how can we become and transcend beyond just track and field? How can we become like, as big as possible, have as big of a reach? Because when you can have that platform, you can do some really great things. So taking it all to the next level, hopefully. And I've got a great support system and people that I work with. Emily Pritt is like head of our BTC youth programs and she's like our operations manager. And so she and I have been collaborating a lot this year on a lot of ideas. If the Olympic trials goes through for track and field, she and I and a team of other people have just created some really cool things that we're excited about for the trials, like a whole BTC section, fan section, and just a lot of fun integrative things to make fans excited about our athletes. So
that's awesome. Do you give guidance to the group there on social media and how to use it as a professional athlete?
I don't. And maybe I should, but I think everyone does a pretty good job. I think they're pretty self-aware and compassionate, and take stock of what's going on around them to make sure things are appropriate. But no, I don't give guidance. I think letting them be themselves is great, and I think in general we all have very similar mentality for the most part. So yeah, I think they do a good job. They're as athletes, we're self-centered, but yet at the same time, I think that they can take a step back and realize, like, okay, what am I giving to the world? What's my message, and how am I improving? And giving advice and inspiration to people. So
yeah, I think
hopefully we do a good job. I'd love your
yeah,
feedback.
yeah, I totally agree. I think you guys are doing a great job, and I think that it's a weird time where maybe when you joined the sport, results were probably more important than social presence. Whereas today, I think that they sort of go hand in hand. It's not just about winning or being the best you can. It's about elevating everyone around you. And I think you in particular have done a really good job with that, but then also the group at out in Portland.
Yeah.
And we see a lot of this within the sport in other places as well. And I think that from being on the brand side myself, it's really interesting to work with athletes that perform but also share the journey. My favorite is Steph Bruce, with how brutally honest she is with the ups and downs. And it's really cool that like that's motivating for people. It's adding the human aspect of training and life.
Yeah. Yep. Totally agree. In this day and age, you can use social media as a great way to connect and to self-motivate. And, I always emphasize to the athletes, like, I feel like my mantra has been the last couple of years, and especially with some just, negative news in our sporting world, it's the message is it's great to be fast, but it's even better to be a good person. So
Totally.
just sharing the right messages. We love to win. We love to set records. We love to win medals. But at the end of the day, we really ultimately are always like, we want to be good people. So, because it means nothing to have all that if you're not a good person. So,
Totally.
it's like they go hand in hand. Like you said, you got to have both. And when you do have both, that's magic. And that's really how you make an impact. So.
Cool. A couple maybe lighter questions. Do you plan to run Boston for fun one day?
Oh yeah, for sure. I would love to.
What's that?
I've
What's
already
that
committed. I've already committed this spring, but will be transferred obviously to this fall now. But I already committed to doing work with NBC as part of their broadcast team. So I won't be doing it this year. But I don't know. Maybe in the future. My friend Adrienne Haslett, I'd love to like help pace her and run with her at some point when she runs Boston. That would be fun to me. I don't know. I think it's finding the right reason to run it, but for sure I will be back running Boston at some point.
Awesome. What do you wish people knew about you?
That I think a lot of people think I'm really serious, but, as I laugh at myself, yeah, I think people think I'm like really hardcore and serious, but I actually, I don't know. I'm actually pretty silly, but I think I'm only like that with, people that I know pretty close. And, yeah, like I'm a lot more lighthearted and, I don't know, I can't say I'm funny, but, basically that I'm a lot more laid back. And like, I think it's like the perception is I'm pretty hardcore, which I can be, but it's like, I very much can switch that, over to being pretty laid back. So, I think people would be surprised to know that. So
Cool. What's been your proudest moment as a coach so far?
well, it's
Or one of
really fun. Yeah. I mean, I feel like I get to have a lot of proud moments. So it's hard to like pick one, but it is really fun to help my athletes literally break my own records that I set. So that's really fun for me. I'm like,
And that
man,
happened recently, right?
yeah,
In a big
exactly.
way.
So in Boston at BU, we set up a race for three of our women to go after my American record, which I set at Reggie Lewis at 8:33. I got second that day, and that was back in like 2006 or something. I don't even know, 2006, 2007. And that was like a huge breakthrough race for me. I had just come off of foot surgery. It was like my first race back. And I think I dropped like 30 seconds off my PB. I mean, it was massive. And it was kind of changed the trajectory of how I thought about myself. So it was a really big moment for me. And to do it in Boston in front of a home crowd, my parents were there. I just had a foot surgery. So it was off of like a tough time for me. And so it was just like one of my favorite races I ever ran. So like thinking back nostalgically to that and then seeing them all just annihilate that record, it was just really fun for me to think
Yeah.
I helped make these three athletes even better than I was. And it
Yeah.
just really, yeah, it's fun to see that. Like, and that's been my goal as a coach, is have them do it better than I ever did it. And yeah, so that was great. And then, yeah, we had Vanessa Frazier. She was only 1 second off of my 5K national record. And she ran 14:48. So that was a huge breakthrough for her. So just seeing these, I think the big one is also just seeing how these athletes shift their mentality of how they think about themselves. Is, Vanessa is a very cool story because she was basically a walk-on at Stanford and never won a national title, was pretty solid, but she joins our team and definitely doesn't have the same accolades as the other athletes of national titles and all these records. And here she comes in and she just puts her head down, works really hard. Didn't maybe see as big of a breakthrough in the first year, but here she has this huge moment in Boston of being 1 second off my national record. And she was just hoping to run around 15 flat or just sneak under. And to just see them have that mental shift in their self-confidence and in what they're capable of, like she's thinking even bigger now. And I love seeing that shift of like putting in the work, not knowing when your moment's going to come, hoping it comes, and then seeing them, watching themselves exceed their wildest expectations is just so much fun for me. So yeah, that's addicting as a coach to see those big breakthroughs, to be honest, seeing them transform themselves mentally and physically into this person they didn't even think was within themselves. So
I think that's my favorite part about running, the mental shift of understanding what's possible. And like I call it like leveling up. Like once you do it and something that you thought was unattainable becomes normal, then what?
Yeah, exactly. It's addicting as the athlete to have that happen, and it's addicting as a coach to see that happen. And it's like you want that for them every day. I think about them putting in the work and thinking about like their big moment's going to come, and that's exciting.
Definitely. And I think like the only secret to that is just consistency, right?
Yeah, that's the only way I know how to do it. It's the good old fashioned, unfortunate, the unsexy work. It's just coming and putting in the work every day and just consistently doing it. And like I said, stuffing that silo full of miles and workouts. And you never know when your breakthrough is going to come. I always say it's like you can pick out this moment. You're like, I want this big breakthrough to happen at this specific race in Boston, on April 20th, I want this big breakthrough moment. And it just doesn't work that way. Like you keep showing up and preparing yourself to have that big breakthrough moment, but unfortunately you just don't get to pick it. So you just have to put your head down and do the process and do the work every day. And then just one day it's going to click and it's going to happen. But you just don't get to pick it, unfortunately. That's how it works.
I think that's the best way to put it. And I think that's why the focus on the long term is how you become successful. So I tried for 4 years to BQ, and I was so focused on breaking 305, and then breaking 3. And it took lining up on the start line, not caring whether the finishing time had a 2 or a 3 or a 4 on it, for me to actually do it. And in the first miles of that race, I was like, this is the most free I've ever run. And that's like, that was it. And I was running miles faster than I had ever run comfortably. Every time I looked at my watch, I was looking at another 640 that felt effortless.
Yeah.
And then, 2 hours and 59 minutes later, I'm staring at the finish line. And it was just like, it was euphoric, but it was, and then the next day, like that's all, like, then you move on.
Yeah.
And that's the leveling up. That's like, okay,
Yeah.
that's now possible. What else is possible?
Yeah. I find that when even I found in myself or I watch athletes, the minute we try to force a result, it's likely not to come. It's best to just, like, another cheesy saying of mine is, like, control what you can control and then go with the flow, because it's so true. The minute you try to, like, force everything to make it happen, it generally doesn't. So yeah, I feel like my biggest race is winning the New York City Marathon, and I went in with such a calm peacefulness. I felt like I prepared really well, but I didn't feel like I went in like, I have to win this race to validate myself or anything. I just went in such a state of flow and peace that it just naturally flowed out of me to have a great race. And that's truly, like, if you can recreate that, I feel like everyone's
That's the
pretty
magic.
happy. It is. And you don't get to have those moments very often. That's why they're so special. But yeah, trying to force a result is just, it usually just doesn't end up working out. So I try to, when the athletes look anxious and, they really want something super bad, I try to just tell them, like, just focus on all the little steps, but don't try to focus on the end result too soon. Don't try to force the result to happen. So
Definitely. So what were you thinking about in the later stages, or as you were, as that finish line was in sight in New York?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it truly was one of those, I'm sure in everyone's life, there's something that you really wanted. I don't know what that would be, but for me, it was winning a major city marathon. I think I visualized probably winning Boston the most, but New York was a close second. And then, winning the Olympic Games. And so I had visualized moments like that in training to get me through the hard training, like visualizing myself winning that marathon. So, in my preparation of New York, I visualized winning that marathon and what it would feel like, the sights, the sounds, all of it. And so, you recreate that in your mind over and over. I'd be in Mammoth Lakes, California, sucking through a straw of like 8,000, 9,000 feet, so tired, but I would visualize that to get me through, and it would excite me, and it kept me motivated. And so when it was actually, I was living out the actual dream, it was for sure surreal, because I'm like, oh my gosh, I have visualized this too many times, millions of times, and here I am, I'm actually doing it.
It's actually
And so it was one
happening.
of those, yeah, it's actually happening. So it was one of those moments, like, oh, I like manifested this, like I dreamt about this and it's happening. Like, so part of me is like trying to savor the moment, because I'm like, I've dreamed of this, like, don't rush it away. But at the same time, no, you need to rush to the finish line because you need to solidify this. So it's like one of those, like, it's one of those, like, you want to slow it down, but you also want to speed it up. So you're like, which one is it? So you're kind of like, that's a feeling. And then just being like, thinking I went through so many moments of doubt that I would ever be able to do it, and feeling like I was going to give up on the dream so many times, and having to push through injuries to get there, and thinking about all the people that helped me get there. I mean, as you know, there's so many people that help you to just get to that moment.
Right.
And so just feeling like, wow, like I need to do this. It feels so good because, like it's, when you win those races, I always say, like, when people are cheating, it's like they're stealing, not just stealing from that athlete, they're stealing from that team and that family that surrounds them, like that helps them, because it's so far reaching, the web of joy beyond just the one individual. It's like hundreds of people get to experience that joy through that athlete. So it's like you're stealing joy from a lot of people, if you don't allow that true athlete to do like what they're meant to do and win. So thinking about that, and yeah, I just felt like, oh my gosh, like I knew I was meant to do this, and I'm so happy I stuck with it even through the hard times. And the hard times for sure make those highs and those good times feel so much better. And Obviously we can apply even just that message right there to what we're going through right now. So yeah, it was just euphoric. Like you described, you running 2:59. It's euphoria. Like I think after the race, I tweeted out something like, I felt like I had like a happiness hangover. Like my cheeks were sore from smiling so much. Like I just couldn't, I think I was smiling in my sleep for like a week. Like it just felt so good. It felt so damn good and it still feels good. Like, if I'm having a tough day, I'm like, man, at least I still have that. That was great. That was a good thing. Like that felt so good. So, I draw upon that moment to push through things that, I'm having a hard time with, or I don't think I'm capable of. And I think back to that moment and I'm like, man, I want to recreate that moment. That's what we chase. We chase moments like that because they fuel us for such a long time. And yeah, I just think back to when I first started. I was thinking back to when I first started running and got into it, just running with my dad, and how that dream started literally on the streets of Boston, watching him run the marathon, and how I got to that point is wild. Like just the journey to get there. So it's one of those moments that I play over and over. And I try to savor it because I feel like as each year goes by, I start to forget little moments about it. I remember there was like a dog that ran out in front of me in Central Park, and the owner was like terrified the dog was going to trip me because I was running alone. And, like little moments like that, like little funny things that like I try to like think about it so I don't forget those little moments that just make it special. So
awesome. I think that's an amazing place to stop, and some really great advice for people navigating some challenging times. So I think the takeaway there is enjoy the highs and don't sweat the lows too much. Shalane, where can we follow you and follow your journey on social?
Let's see. So with Instagram, I believe I'm at Shalane Flanagan. And then I think Twitter is the same. It's funny, I don't really know my handles, but I think it's just at Shalane Flanagan. And then a great way if you want to get some recipe updates, and just like, even tips about what's going on in the world with, for example, with everyone's immune system being compromised. Like Elise and I are giving tips and recipes away on our website, runfasteatslow.com. So there's always great information that we're creating content on that website, and it's totally free. And I usually tag it in a lot of my Instagram stuff. But yeah, if you ever want to go to the website, you can go there too. And then I would also suggest following my co-author, Elise Kopecki. She's always got tons of great advice, whether it be being a parent or managing crazy hectic life and cooking and meal planning. She and I are, working hard to provide as much information to help people get through their busy lives and be healthy.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And we'll see you out there.
Awesome. So nice to talk to you.
Likewise. Thanks again to Synchronet for sponsoring this week's podcast. Synchronet uses breakthrough technology, creating a truly fitted sock that doesn't slip in your shoe and enhances the performance of a running shoe. They're tight on the arch and heel, which makes it feel snug. As a reminder, you can use the code LONGRUN25 to receive 25% off your first order at synchronet.com. That's SYNCHROKNIT.com. I'll be wearing them this spring, and you should too. That's it for today's episode. Like many long runs, it's sad when it has to end. I hope you join in next week on For the Long Run, and in the meantime, happy trails. If you've enjoyed this episode, it would mean a lot to me if you shared it so that others can find it and enjoy it too.